All right. So before we begin, I think it's always good for us to remember names and everything of everybody that we work with but don't see every day. So if you just want to share really briefly, and I'll call you off in the order that you appear on my screen, but your name and what your position is and what county. I'm Ryan Cleland. I'm the Butte County 4-H CES. Next up, we have Linda.
Butte County Secretary or 4-H.
All right, and Susan.
Hi, I'm Susan Weaver, Santa Clara County CES and program rep.
Great, and Lauren. I know you just hopped on, yeah, but you're next on my window.
And what are we doing?
Just introductions, just your name and your position and county.
I'm Lauren Hoffman-Lures, and I'm with the Monterey County 4-H program.
Great, and Sheila. Sheila, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right, go ahead.
I just walked back in. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, sorry, we're just doing 2 for 2. We're just doing brief introductions, your name, county, and position.
Well, I'm Sheila Bakke. I'm with Solano County, and I am a 4-H assistant.
Excellent. And Stephanie Barrett.
Stephanie Barrett. I'm in Riverside and San Bernardino County, and I am a program rep.
Great. And then Sue McKinney typed hers in. She's CES Kern County. She doesn't have a microphone today. And then Ziva.
Hi, this is Ziva Cho. I'm San Mateo, San Francisco program rep.
Excellent. And Susanna.
Hi, I'm Susanna from Ventura County. I oversee our 4-H rep, and we also have a rec in our county, so I oversee the education programs at our rec that we package under 4-H.
Oh, I'm excited to hear more about that. And then Kelly.
Hi, I'm Kelly Pedrati, and I am the 4-H rep in Humboldt and Delnor counties.
Excellent. And then Natalie, you just joined. We're just doing brief introductions, name, county, and position. If you want to give that, and you're going to round out the group.
Hi, I'm Natalie with Placer County, CES2 for 4-H.
Cool. All right. So the plan for today is to go just pretty straightforward. I don't want to talk for too long. I want to have more group discussion because I think that's one of the best ways that CESs learn about our jobs and ways that we can improve our program delivery and learn about what other folks are doing. So I'll have a few slides here and then we can go ahead into that. And Suzanne, you just joined us. I was just saying I'm going to go through a few slides and then we're going to have some group discussion because that's the best way that we all learn. So just by maybe a show of the little emoji hands that you can throw up, how many people are familiar with alternate delivery modes? Okay, Susanna, Lauren, Sheila. Okay, Kelly, Zava, Suzanne. How many people are total novices, I guess might be a better question, that they've focused just on their club programs, which is not unusual. Okay, it doesn't look like anybody. So that is cool. We've got an advanced class here. So then I probably don't need to spend as much time, which I'm thankful for, on the these more specific nitty gritty paperwork, but there is an alternate delivery modes matrix that I'll send out to everybody. But that's very useful when trying to wrap your head around all of these. And so one of the most important things, in my opinion, is to know, obviously, the difference between individual and group enrollment. And really, it's simple. Individual enrollment is when we collect fees, and group enrollment is when we don't. However, both youth and individual enrollment and group enrollment will receive education basically at the hands of 4-H, whether that is through a proxy that is their teacher or another trained leader, or through the program rep themselves. The individuals and the groups are both learning those things. And then here is the first half of the matrix. So the top is the whole top row, row, if you follow it all the way along, is what many of us are most familiar with, which is our organized 4-H community clubs. And that's individual enrollment, again, meaning that they pay fees, and is a 4-H club, usually led by a council or a VMO on the county level. And many of us are familiar with that 6 hours of instruction minimum that all of those youth need to achieve. But also under 4-H clubs, something that I know in my county we don't have, which are in-school clubs, after-school clubs, and military clubs. Many of those take the form of SPIN clubs, and SPIN are the special interest programs down here, which is basically a short course, if you will. So it can be we can go to an after-school program that is pre-existing and say we're starting a SPIN club, and the youth that are interested within that after-school club of doing that can have 6 weeks or so, maybe an hour a week, or do a focused couple of weeks where we do 3 2-hour sessions, but learn very specific information on any given topic or any given project that SPIN club decides to focus on. And that can be anywhere from livestock to leadership. So really, and true to 4-H's form, is very, very flexible. And then the second half of this matrix has some that we're going to focus on here in particular, but day camping can include, if anybody doesn't know, if you have camp programs, you and the kids have friends that they want to bring to the camp programs, you can enroll those kids into 4-H if they pay that enrollment fee on top of the camp fee, and they're more than welcome to join at day camps or overnight camps. It's just a special shout out to that. But what we're going to focus on a lot here is school enrichment, although I am curious to see what, I think it was Suzanne said at their rec, what programs they offer, because that would likely be an alternate delivery mode. But school enrichment programming is unique for a couple of ways. One, it's traditionally group enrollment, although it can be individual. But usually it's group enrollment, which means there's no fees, which means there's no paperwork, which usually means happy 4-H staff. And also there's no minimum for how many hours those youth need to be impacted by the curriculum. And of course, that is not to say we want them to have 1 minute so that we can count them in our group enrollment, but it means that as long as they're being impacted by our curriculum, it doesn't matter for how long. Sorry, Sheila, you're right. Group enrollment does have paperwork, but it's less arduous on those that we're trying to enroll, is what I meant to say. So they are going to not have to fill out all of the enrollment paperwork and everything. The paperwork is on our end to make sure that they're captured in 4-H online. but there's no minimum, which is really fantastic because then educators are able to really build it in any way that works for their classroom. And then the same with the bottom three, the individual mentoring family learning programs, after school education programs, and instructional TV, video, or webcast. There's no minimum. And so it's a really fantastic way to capture individuals without a lot of work or effort on our part, and still be true to 4-H's mission of educating young people. So they're all really excellent ways, but school enrichment is one that, and that's why I wanted to do this workshop today. I've seen evidence that it can be incredibly successful in reaching a wide group of people with not a lot of effort on the program reps part after that CES has gotten the groundwork laid.
Brian,
And
can
so,
you tell me, I'm sorry to interrupt, can you tell me, if you go back a page?
Yeah.
Was there a date on the bottom of that version that you shared with us? Is it the 2018?
Let me see if I can minimize and get to
In my mind, it was
updated.
updated,
This
but-
was updated in April of 2018.
Or 2018. Okay, thank you.
Yes. And actually, I'll pause here before I go into the resources page. Any questions? I know I went through that fast, but I want to hear the pragmatic examples that we have. Okay, if there's no questions, I'll dive into resources that can be helpful. So first and foremost, Pdsl Funds. This is just an excellent use of Pdsl funds, and beyond just our own professional development, really one of the best ways I think that you can use those funds because you can purchase curricula or other resources, tools, supplies that are needed to do some of these. Because just like with 4-H and human nature, the more hands-on, the more interactive, the more active these activities are, the more interest there is on the teacher's end, the more fun it is for the program reps, and the more enjoyable the education is for the kids. And then the 4-H Mall has a fantastic, constantly being updated list of curricula. If you have not looked at it before, I really encourage you to go check it out, because they have things from like genealogy to geology to citizenship to an entire section of the website that's focused on STEM. It's really, really fantastic. And that's where you can purchase supplies like refills on junk drawer robotics things. Although other CESs that I've known have just gone to, Costco or craft stores and purchased those. They found it was, they were able to stretch the dollar a little bit more there. But also something to consider when you're thinking about building an alternate delivery mode program is local stakeholders. I'm sure she'd be okay with me sharing Nicole Marshall, who's a 4-H advisor in Sutter, Yuba, Colusa, and I think maybe one other county, found in the Sutter, Yuba area that they had, obviously water is super important in the Valley and in Northern California, and found some water groups that were willing to donate money for water education for youth. And so she was able to supply some really fantastic bioscapes that mimic the water cycle. And then the kids have different water squirt bottles with food coloring in them that is, whether it's rain or chemical runoff, and they squirt in specific areas, and they're able to see how, runoff from a specific area can end up getting into the water supply for a larger group that was never intended to be impacted. And that was all made possible because of a donation that was given directly by this water advocacy group in the local area. And then finally, one of the biggest resources is going to be the relationships. And that's something I think that comes as no surprise to CESs that have been around for a while, whether that is individual teachers, teachers unions, school boards, or some schools have their own kind of, not teachers union, but teachers group that you can go and speak to and pitch what you have. So those relationships are really, really paramount to that. So you might be asking why I'm qualified to speak on this. And I'll admit, I think I'm only partially qualified to speak on this. When I came in about 3 years ago now, Tracy Bishop and Sutter Yuba invited local program reps down to see the program that she had created. She's since retired, but she had a fleet of incubators. I think it was 5 or 6 that teachers, she said their sign-up sheet filled up before the school year started when they opened it. And they were able to reach literally thousands of students. And the teachers would, sometimes they would go drop them off for the teachers, but other times the teachers would just come to the office, pick up the incubator and the curricula kit and go deliver that and then return it. And they would capture, maybe that teacher shared it with another couple classes, 100 kids. And Tracy was able to continue completing paperwork sitting at her desk while that education was taking place. And I was just floored that we would be able to reach that many students with that little amount of effort. And, I'm editorializing a little bit here, but I really think that this is a long-term future for the sustainability of 4-H in California, because we have ways that we can reach such large groups of students with very little effort, like I said, besides the initial buy-in and groundwork that the program reps have to put in. And so I followed that model. I have 3 incubators, and between the fire and the plague here in Butte County, I was able to deliver this to one classroom that was my pilot classroom. And I had a fantastic teacher who I actually gave her all the information I had. We were going to do it so that part of the development took place over Thanksgiving break for the students. And she actually said, you know what, I need to wait until the new year because there's so much curricula here. I want to make sure I'm pulling the best pieces out. And so that's when I knew I had a good teacher that said, I still want to do it, but I need more time to make it right for my classroom. And so she ended up delivering the program in the new year, and she shared it with 2 other classes, and then also oriented an after school advisor to bring the students in the after school program through and look at the eggs. And so all said and done, I probably put in about 3 hours of clockable work, and maybe 5. And I was able to group enroll 200 students. So it really speaks to the power of the educators doing work, not just for us, but they're delivering 4-H curricula, and that's part of our jobs. So it's a fantastic way for us to increase our reach within our county programs. And then also there are the tangential benefits of us reaching racial parity. I know in Butte County, we have very white community clubs. So our alternate delivery modes are one of the best ways that we make sure that we're being honest when reporting our numbers, that we have a reach that is actually diverse. So at this time, I just wanted to kind of open up the floor and see if there was anybody who'd like to share their own experiences or successes or struggles that they've had with delivery modes. And then with this group of fantastic program reps that we have here, we can talk through overcoming them or take those ideas, those success stories, and use them in our own programs.
So I'll just start out. I'm a county that has 2 military programs because we have the former Fort Ord in Monterey. And then we have a Defense Language Institute, which is a part of our Naval Postgraduate Program in Monterey. And so we had 2 after-school programs, childcare centers, where we were running the military program. And that's actually how I started with my employment in 4-H, was working with them, and then eventually became the full-time program rep. As some of you may be aware, the military programs are no longer funded. There's no longer money for those, so I'm not interacting. But I'll share that with the military programs, they had clubs. They were actually chartered clubs in the 4-H program, and they did activities. They were great about buying the 4-H curriculum and activities and kits, and then implementing them into a 6-week, 8-week program. They did better than any of my community clubs. So that's that, because they had staff with the children day after day, and they were accustomed to, running this type of curriculum and programs. What was difficult was just really feeling connected to 4-H, because the parents drop them off. There was no volunteers. Parents oftentimes didn't even know that it was 4-H day at that child care center and that a 4-H experience had occurred. We were always asked to put up signage around those daycare centers, after school centers, to show that there was 4-H programming. Staff turnover was so high at these centers that I was finding that I would need to check in at least quarterly, if not more, physically, to show up to make sure that the new staff person in charge knew that there was a 4-H program, that they were to be reporting on it. Again, back then, they didn't do any online reporting. They didn't capture any enrollment. The forms that we created and used at a county level gave me some basic information to input for reporting. But, I'm not handling that anymore, so I don't know how that would have changed. But they never really enrolled the children or used any type of standardized enrollment form. But again, they did some of the best work with using some of our 4-H curriculum and kits, and really had great models and great results at the end.
Very cool. Lauren, and this is, really more of like an esoteric question, but how important do you think them knowing, the 4-H-iness of the programming being like, do you think that's important? Because in my opinion, I think I would like them all to know the programming is being delivered by 4-H, but beyond knowing where it comes from, I think I would be satisfied that they're receiving that education via our program.
Right. So, because we're just as program reps and staff, we're just collecting the data that they are actually using, and we're putting it into the system, and it's showing that the ages of the children and the grades, and other facts about the children. You're right. But ultimately, I think the great thing about military clubs is hopefully to bring those children to a more of a community club standard, and they join that community club and then grow through, and not just because it was there after school. I would find, however, when I would go and visit the sites, that I'd find that there were parents who were somehow a 4-H alum, which was great, and they were really excited to see that signage up or know that their kids were doing something 4-H. So does it really matter? I suppose not. In the military programs, it is an MOU. They have to offer certain aspects of 4-H. That's really more based upon the staff at the child care centers, that they must complete the MOU, which is, as a military person, staff person at the county office, you have to make sure that they are meeting the basics of the MOU, because every military site is going to have an inspection, and they're going to go through all their hours, and they're going to come through all the experiences, and it all has a standard. So you want to make sure that they meet that standard. Did it work to bring in more children to our county program? No. Our county program is more inland and agricultural based traditionally. Our 2 military sites were very much on the coastline of Monterey. And so there was a travel distance for the children to travel in order to be part of a club. And I found most of their programming was really elementary school based. That's what they really went for. So we rarely saw any team continuation in the 4-H programming of the day.
That's good. That's a good point, because that's another, I mean, in theory, we believe that distributing alternate delivery modes might increase in the end our community club enrollment. So that's an important point. And Jackie, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, the reason that I raised my hand is because the question that you asked in regards, is it really important that they know that this curriculum and everything's coming from 4-H? And I will just tell you, over the years of being here, that the experience I've had, at first I was just glad that they were doing it. We could count the numbers, and you know, that was my main goal. But as time's gone on, I realized that there is a bigger need for making sure that they know that it's coming from 4-H and stuff, because what's happening is when those messages go home to the parent and everything else, we're getting the brand recognition, and they become our advocates. We were in 4-H, or we had a part with 4-H. Look at what they were doing in the school. Look at how they were supporting us. And that's a huge number that if we don't have that recognition. So what we've designed with a lot of the pilot curriculum that I've tested with in School Enrichment, which is where we get a lot of ours doing the pilot curriculum testing for different states and whatnot. We make sure that there's a homework piece or a parent letter piece that goes home. And that is the piece that ties in that connection. Not that we're doing anything else. We're just tying in this one-page handout that the teachers can send home, or they can send in their weekly emails or whatever they're doing. And so, yes, that is something that we do need to make sure that we're developing and having there. It's become huge with our advocacy with our county for funding.
Jackie, that is awesome. And this is exactly why I wanted to have this type of focus group, because I would have never come up with the idea of a homework piece or a letter home that ends up getting into the hands of the parents. And that's fantastic. So that then we end up, even if they don't join our program, like you said, they become advocates on our behalf. That's fantastic.
Ryan, I just wanted to say that I agree with Jackie a lot of what she said. We have, as I mentioned, we also have a rec in our county, and I kind of came into 4-H from the rec side. I didn't really know that much about 4-H. I was originally a SNAP CES, and so I had accumulated a huge amount of teachers that I had worked with. And when I was asked to put together a field trip program, our 4-H advisor at the time said, you know, we need to brand this 4-H, and we need to capture all those numbers. And so in the last 13, 14 years that I've been at this, we've grown to over 8,000 kids that we enroll as group enrollment. And we do exactly what Jackie says. We brand everything 4-H. We send home, you know, little 5x7 cards, bookmarks, anything that each child could take home. And then at the beginning of each field trip or classroom outreach, we say, you know, today, you're 4-Hers. And I don't know that it necessarily increased our enrollment in 4-H, but I think it really brought to the community an awareness of what 4-H is and that it's out there.
Yeah.
So that's, like I said, it became quite a big job, because, you know, having 8,000 kids go through the program. But I did partner with school districts, with the city of Ventura. You know, we have 4-H volunteers that go out into the classroom. We have a farm, so the kids come out in field trips with their teachers, and they do our volunteers do all the extending. We had an after-school student farm for middle schoolers. We offered a sustainability summer camp. And because of the rec, our focus was basically ag literacy and nutrition and sustainability. But it really is a way, like you said, Ryan, to capture that parity, you know, to get that, because in our county, our clubs are very white.
Yeah.
And we have a really hard time reaching other ethnicities. And through our schools that are countywide, you know, we definitely have an ability to reach more kids in all the ethnicities. So I really strongly encourage that the you know, school enrichment programs. They've been a huge part of our enrollment.
Yeah. And do you partner with like your local nutrition staff in your cooperative extension office for those field trips?
Well, sadly, when we no longer have SNAP because our advisor left, and that program went, unfortunately. But so I wish we did. If we did, we could definitely. But what I have done is reached out to the school districts, and I do work with 2 or 3 school districts, and I partner with their Harvest of the Month program. Sometimes we grow something for them. We give them the vegetable, like for example, we just did sugar snap peas. The kids are cooking in the classroom. They're taste testing. They're doing all the stuff, and we capture all those numbers. And we're talking hundreds of kids,
Right.
that get a nutrition lesson that we can capture.
That's fantastic.
And for example, with look in your communities. We in your school. In your cities, like for example, we have our city of Ventura has a huge sustainability division, and we train them, their educators, on our worm composting lesson, and they teach it out in the classrooms. They already have those connections with schools, and again, they're using our materials. It's kind of a win-win for us because we've developed the materials. We've taught 3 or 4 people to teach it, and then they go out there, and then we capture like 900 kids.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It really is a way of making your efforts go a lot further.
Yeah, exactly. And expanding our reach. And I think Jackie's point was so true, especially as many of us are facing funding uncertainty in the long term of building an advocacy network just based on delivering our program in a true and honest way. And that's something that is priceless in the end. So yeah, thank you, Jackie. I'm really glad that you brought up yours. Susan, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, if my dishwasher will be quiet.
I'm just trying some new headphones, so I just wasn't sure about you hearing me. I hear you fine. So a couple of things. I really like what Jackie said about the brand recognition, and I have really found that not just the 4-H, but University of California carries such a weight. One program comes to mind that she always refers to us as the University of California educators. So because they at that location have not only 4-H there, but they have CalFresh as well. So what Susanna was saying about partnering also is something that we did at this particular location, which happens to be a bilingual charter school that serves from preschool all the way to high school. And we were able to partner with CalFresh because they were already servicing that location, and Master Gardeners. And Master Gardeners provided us with everything that we needed to make a to-go kit for students to pick up at school. And then our sessions centered around plant science, healthy living, and they built their own composters at home with the supplies that we provided, just a small countertop composter, but just to start the idea. And then we tied in recycling and, recycle, reuse, reduce.
Yeah.
So that was super experience and sharing the work too between us, and CalFresh was really smart in the end, and we will do it again. It was such a positive experience for everyone, but we were able to, even during pandemic, go into the Google Classrooms and present a 50-minute program for students with teen teachers. And I will say towards the last 2 weeks of the third grades, we did 6 different sessions, and the teen teachers were burnt. And they were honest about it. We're like, we're burnt teaching. It's one thing to be on for school, but teaching's too much. So the CalFresh and I had to teach those last 2 sessions on our own, but it was fine because the students by then were totally used to us and fine with it. But the other recommendation I was going to make is, I know this isn't true everywhere, but for us, it has been such a huge advantage to have identified a school that is a bilingual community, because in San Jose especially, our parity really relies on reaching the Hispanic community. And because virtually 98% of the students there are of some Latino descent, it makes it easy, filling out those group enrollments. And another way that I reached them last year is we have virtual reality goggles. And so I reached out to all the teachers K through 6 and said, if there is any of these subjects that you're touching on, I can come in for a 40-minute time and give your students the opportunity to experience these things like volcanoes or agriculture, different possibilities, bees, and I'll come in and bring a virtual reality experience. And so that was such a short commitment because it was one day, but truly the students were experiencing something that tied to their curriculum, and they were all counted as group enrollment. So there's just so many different ways. I think we've all been challenged this last year for sure, but this is good timing for all of us, because thinking towards when we can, what are we going to do? And I really appreciate hearing everybody else's experiences and ideas, and just trying to figure out a way to make it all work.
Yeah. Whenever you mentioned the things like the VR, I have to, then I go, wait, how? And then I remember Santa Clara.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. I'm going to go to Jackie next, but if anybody if they've struggled to or want to create a group enrollment or alternate delivery mode in their county and has questions, start thinking about that, because I'd love to walk through a brainstorming session. Jackie?
So I just wanted to bring up something that is kind of unique, but sometimes we do with our outreach, there's things that come up that I just wanted to explain to everybody that's a possibility too. I partnered with our local cattle women, and we do a lot of educational opportunities. And one of the things they do is adopt a school in the Bay Area. And we go down and we teach hands-on lessons for agriculture every other year with the animals. And the in between year, we go down and we do just classroom visits. But I can't count those numbers here in Siskiyou County, even though I'm partnering and I'm taking 4-H curriculum to them and we're doing this. So when I went the last time, or the last 2 times, we capture those numbers, we share them with San Francisco, and they get to count those numbers for what I'm doing for the day. So just because we count across borders, I need you to understand that if you're doing that with any organization or anything else, please help the county that you're going to and share the numbers of what you're doing for the day and assist with that, because it's a huge thing that we can do for each other. And a lot of them are things that start right in our county that we're doing anyway. The reason we do that and we take all of our 4-Hers down is because it's a great experience for our teens to learn about diversity in other areas that we may not be able to experience here. But when we're there, we capture all those numbers of those students, and that goes to San Francisco County.
Yeah, that's absolutely 100%. I had a similar experience where I had a program that overlapped into Sutter County, and I said, yep, absolutely, let's do it. And I just informed Nicole about it down there, and she said, sounds great. And then we both got numbers from it. And it was beneficial, and it was no more work on my end to do. Has there been anybody that has been trying to or wanting to develop a school enrichment or any type of programming in their area? It's been struggling. Okay, then I'll share what my long-term vision has been, that has not been able to be realized because it's been one natural disaster after another up here. But my first year, I was so eager. I had a lot of Pdsl funds left over. And so I bought so much curriculum with it. From the examples that I've been listing off today have all been from that. The genealogy, geology. There was this awesome citizenship workbook where it was for grades like 2 through 6, who they would encourage the kids to go to a municipal government building and investigate and ask the employees there, what their purpose was and what they do every day and how that serves the community. And my long-term goal has been to create really like a menu for local teachers to come on our website. And just like when we go to the 4-H mall and look at the curriculum, create a menu for them, describing some of those activities that they can check out and look for. And then some time being here in the job made me realize like how much effort that would take, how much work that would take really to fully flesh out and a long-term check-in, check-out system. It would take an extensive, testing, seeing what works and what doesn't with our county staff to make sure that checking in and checking out of those resources can be possible. And so that's when I tempered it down to saying, okay, well, I'm going to focus on the embryology and try to get that off the ground first. And then once I get there, but it just, when as a lifelong 4-H'er growing up, being on the staff side, it blew my mind that there were so many awesome ways for us to expand our reach as an organization. And it had me thinking, is there more the state office could do? And I still ask myself this question because I don't know. I was like, if there was some bundle that was made, and basically any program rep that had the time that was able to take it up, that could be delivered, maybe tweaked a little bit to fit our local area. But anyways, I don't know. I just kind of word vomited to everybody, but that was a long-term vision that I had. And I was trying to think, I don't know, is this something that one person can do that's 75% time? Is this even possible when I have my community clubs that also want my attention? And would this be a valuable thing for the state to try to find somebody in their office to find a way that streamlines this delivery to teachers, so it's easier for us to pick up and do? Like, I think of the Color Me Green runs are such an awesome example of something that, almost any program rep can get oriented on that in less than an hour and deliver it. So I don't know, did that stimulate any thoughts or comments from anybody? Susanna?
Well, yes, I think that I agree. I mean, there's so much out there that we can teach to kids, right? And again, I think because of my background in the rec and having to narrow it down to agriculture, I was kind of tasked to come up with things that were agriculture related. Everything's science, right? Everything's STEM and agriculture as well. And so I went out to teachers, and I think teachers are your best source of, if you want to grab, because they're always looking for a speaker. They're always looking to have like a little time when they're not teaching that they can engage the kids in something. And sometimes, they always tell me, sometimes hearing it from somebody else, it kind of puts it all together, whatever they're teaching. So I just came up with worm composting, how plants grow, pollination. I'm trying to think of some things, how plants use water. I mean, I had some basic lessons and I tailored them by grade level. Or I asked teachers, what is it that your kids are learning that you would like a reinforcement on? And that's how we kind of developed our menu. And we kept it at a very, something that we could handle, because if we were teaching how plants grow, we could go out to a whole school and do all of their kindergartners and first graders, right? And we only had one bucket that we're taking with us. If we're doing the water cycle or whatever, then we just went out and did all the 4th and 5th graders. And so it was just, it helped us to make it reasonable, because there was only basically me and one other person or some volunteers. So anyway, I think that if you try to maybe just focus on like your embryology and maybe one other topic or something and just sell that, but you'll be surprised. I mean, you'll get all the schools that are interested in it, or and maybe you're kind of teaching it all at the same time, but maybe then add one more. So right now I've because of COVID, I deactivated my page on my website because obviously we weren't doing anything in person. But I just have this menu, this is for first graders, this is for second graders, this is for third graders, and we only offer one choice. And again, it was either something the teachers wanted us to teach or something that we wanted to teach out there, and then kept it very basic. So I mean, that's a way to start until you can grow it. That was my suggestion.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna make a note in my Outlook calendar to email you for when you'll probably have that page reactivated.
Yeah, and actually, I was just going to say that I need to jump out to another meeting, but I'm going to put my email on a chat. And if anybody wants to talk or whatever, just please contact me, because I've been doing this for a long time. And like I said, I didn't have the club experience, so I wasn't biased that way. I only knew group School Enrichment. And we've actually been having trouble selling this to the clubs, getting volunteers from the clubs. They don't want to do School Enrichment. They only want to work with projects in their club. And so I've had to go out into the community and get volunteers that don't have kids in the clubs and train them, or master gardeners. We use our master gardener program. We have a huge master gardener program. There's a lot of master gardeners that want to work with kids.
Right.
And so we use them, and they're great educators. But anyway, I'm happy to impart whatever information you want. Like I said, I've been doing it for a long time. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but it has worked. So I'll put my name in the chat. My email in the chat. Please feel free to call me or contact me.
Well, thank you so much. And one more time, I have a volunteer that's Susanna, but you're Susanna?
Susanna, yes.
Susanna, thank you so much.
No problem.
And yeah, and the question that, it's a question that keeps me up at night. And I'm not going after the state office or anything at all. But it's genuinely been like, does anybody have any ideas on, is there a way that we could centralize this and make this easier to deliver? Or is this, finding programming that works in our local areas the way to go? Because every area is so unique. There might not be a catch-all way to deliver this.
It's a question of the sustainability, I think, because we often have opportunities where we can start something, we have a little money to do this or that, but then sustainability, we can bill to school districts, but for those of us doing this job, our time is already so restricted by, as you said, club program and all the administrative, and it never ends. So that part about billing school districts and managing that, to me, is a little intimidating. I haven't done it yet. It's something we're looking towards this year, because I don't know how many of you have heard about the expanded learning opportunity grants that many schools are going to be getting. It's reliant, I believe, on in-person learning. So it does, again, require those programs and schools being willing to allow us on campus, and us, the UC, allowing us to be on campus. But schools are getting tons of money, and this money has to be spent on expanded learning, which is where we can really provide something. I'll try to post the link into the chat, and you guys can maybe do your own research and see if something makes sense. But this is a good opportunity for us to try and monetize what we're doing, and which in turn supports us, being sustainable. The other thing, last week I attended the PYD conference, and we had quite a few discussions about sustainability. And in my experience, the only thing that really worked well was the Teens as Teachers program, because you could apply, get some money to run it, and there wasn't like a whole lot of scrutiny. You just had to, make sure your expenses were related to what you were teaching. And so over a period of time, I was able to accumulate supplies that I can continue to use and repurpose for more outreach to more students. But it is something, I agree, the state office could provide. Here's the roadmap. here's what you need to do. And if you do it, then the next year you're eligible to apply again for that direct funding. I don't know. It's
Finding the money and.
yeah.
Yeah. Stephanie.
Yeah, I was gonna say that the state planned to allow us to do certain contracts and grants without going through the contracts and grants office. I think it's going to help us a lot, because we had a school, I'm trying to remember, it was a district, but there's 2 elementary schools, and they wanted us to come in and do a like virtual embryology project and then lead into more of the animal, like a full animal project. And they wanted us to start that a long time ago, and it took us probably 4 or 5 months to get the contract approved. And it got to the point where the school was getting like, well, we're just not going to do it because this is taking too long. And so Claudia really talked to them a lot and got them to stick with it. And so we have this funding now, and we're hiring one of our volunteers who is going to be leading this embryology project in these 2 different elementary schools. And once the state is able to negotiate that whole thing, I think that's going to really help a lot, where we'll be able to get these smaller grant money without having to go through this long drawn out process that takes months and months and months.
So I heard all that. I'm reading Jackie's chat. Oh, yeah, Jackie, I mean, that makes sense that if it was provided at one time, but then there was grant money and additional funding for it, then it just makes sense that they would back off their offerings of that information because there were alternatives.
But Susan's right. There's a lot of money that the schools have for expanded learning now. And we've been getting like a lot of grants for this. So I think it's going to be easier once that whole process of doing grants without having to go through the office is going to make it a lot easier.
And that's why I put on the slide there of like, if you can have a program or a stakeholder in the community who already has the money, like, oh man, heck yes, don't give us the money, just buy the supplies and we will tell you what to do with it. It's a really awesome way. That's great. Well, so yeah, I'm hearing then, I think that it sounds like, I mean, one, cutting down on the administrative, the red tape, so to speak, is one thing that's going to benefit us. And then also that it maybe does look like, each of us knowing our communities locally and what they need, and also what within our offices we're capable of providing is sufficient at this time. Probably for new hires, it would just be making sure that they're aware that alternate delivery modes are available and what that process looks like. But yeah, and Jackie, you're right. If we had advisors, yeah, but it would be good. And we'll see. I mean, on Monday, I have starting one of the pilot supervisor positions for a multi-county area. And we'll see, that might also be a mechanism for providing these trainings or the guidance on how to implement alternate delivery modes in school enrichment. I know I'm just excited to, after almost 3 years, have a partner to work hand in hand with on my county and talk through everything. So that's another benefit. Did anybody have any other questions or topics they wanted to discuss here? We have 6 minutes left. All right, any other resources that people were looking for? Okay, well then back when I worked in a corporate office, this is what we called a gift of time for 5 minutes. So thanks everybody for coming. Next month, what we're actually going to do, I have a teacher, Sarah Lloyd, who's a 4-H alum, who's a school teacher in Los Angeles, and she's going to come and speak to us from a teacher's perspective, and having that 4-H knowledge of what kind of school programming might be very, very appetizing to a teacher and what they'll be looking for. Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for coming, and I hope this was productive. And I just think it's always helpful to talk to other program reps and hear what they do in their programs. So thanks everybody, and have a good rest of your afternoon.